for the recording. So tonight we're obviously we will probably still chat about like whatever because that's how we roll.
Yeah.
But we're definitely going to be talking about fairy tale retelling books and book covers and like trends we're seeing, art styles that we're seeing that represent different types of ones, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
What you kind of see in a fairy tale cover, a retelling cover.
Yeah. Which is really good timing because I feel like the last 2 weeks we've had a lot of designers talking to us about retelling
Yeah.
covers and like what they're seeing in the genres and some
Yeah.
of the little like, extra breakoffs that they're starting to see. So, which I totally agree because I'm seeing the same stuff. So I was like, this is really good timing.
It is very good timing. And I made my first retelling cover, and I think you did too.
Mhm. Yeah, we both did our first ones, and I've been kind of working on the one. So, it's October, so next month is Nano and
Yeah.
NaNoWriMo, however you say that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm the worst at, yeah. But yeah, so I'm working on my story for that. I decided to work on the cover now. And oh my goodness, I was hoping that making my cover before I started writing the book would be easier, and it's so not.
Because you still have that idea, it's still yours. It's so
Oh,
difficult to make your own cover.
yes, I'm totally overthinking it. I'm like, I do this for authors all the time.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah,
It's
I'm totally
different when it's
overthinking it
yours.
right now.
Yeah, I tried and I failed so badly. I couldn't even send the publisher a mock up of what I wanted.
Oh, that's
It
why
was
whenever people
hopeless.
send me stuff that's like, I want this on my cover, I kind of am like, like, don't worry about how bad it is because I promise anything I'm sending somebody to make a cover for me is just as bad. Like, I can
Exactly.
understand your scribbles. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. I sent Jay a whole bunch of stuff when he did my covers the first time, and oh dear, they were a mess. Just pieced together bits of images and yeah.
Yeah, the artist that I hired, I was so excited that she was like, send me a Pinterest board of your inspiration for this and like some ideas. And I'm like, yes, because I've already got one.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
this is what I want. And I just
Yeah,
cannot make it myself for some reason.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's just
Yeah,
impossible.
yeah, total mental
Too
block.
close
It's
to it.
driving me crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, watching the kiddo for a second while she's bouncing on the baby monitor.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. I thought she was in bed.
she is, but like I'm watching her right now, and she's currently bouncing back and forth, refusing
Oh,
to
very
sleep.
cool.
So, yeah, it's a toddler for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, so tonight we were going to talk about retellings. So, I have to ask you first, do you have like cover wise or book or both? You could tell both. Do you have a favorite retelling author, like a favorite series or book that's that, and like a favorite cover for that?
The cover and the work don't go together. My favourite of the authors is Mercedes Lackey. I love her retelling series, and
Yes.
I cannot remember what they're called suddenly. But I love the one where it's like supposed to be Cinderella, but she's too old, and the only eligible like prince is like sort of 20 years younger than her, so she has to form a different path, and it's so clever, so clever.
I need to check. I've never heard of that. I need
Yeah,
to check that out.
it might be 500 Kingdoms, but it might not be. That
Okay.
might be a different series of hers. But they're just like totally, retake. Totally different. A real good spin on them. Absolutely love them.
Oh,
What
that's
about you? What's
awesome.
your favorites that you've read?
Um, for stuff that I've read, oh, I'm trying to remember what her name is. So I've read some that are like very spot on.
Yeah.
Like I am a sucker for the ones that are about like the six princesses. I can't remember what
Okay.
it's. There's a typography cover one that's really cool, and it's about the six princesses. And like it caught my interest because it's one. It was the first time I'd ever read the story, and it
Yeah.
basically was like about how like six women. Have you heard what happened to Bo? I don't
To what?
know. I had someone say, "Have you heard what happened to Bo?" I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah. for sure. But yeah, it's really cool because like basically like all these princesses are pulled to for this retelling version, and it's
Yeah.
the first book in a series, and like all these princesses are pulled, and like there's six that are actually of age, and they have to go through these trials that are like torture. I think it's actually called the Princess Trials, and I gotta look. It's gonna bother me,
Oh, I
but
know the
it's
one with the crowns.
yes,
Yes. Oh,
yeah,
I love the
it's
covers.
so good. It's so good. And like they're trying to compete for this one prince and
Oh my
like
goodness.
it's I don't know, it was such a unique twist, but I will also say I love books that are loosely based on retellings to where they get that vibe and you can see it, but
Yeah.
it's not like bam, here is Sleeping Beauty. You know, like
Yeah.
I love that.
That's what the
For
Mercedes ones were like. They were just so different. It was completely about turn on them all.
well, and Sylvia Mercedes is really interesting too as well to watch because her covers did a huge she did a recover on them. So like even in the Pinterest board, which we'll be sharing on our YouTube channels, we're gonna upload this onto those with links and everything so everyone can see what
Yes, we
books
are.
we're talking about. Um, but Sylvia Mercedes did a recover on her stuff. I was noticing that. So like for example, the ones of them kissing, I think are the new ones, and the ones of them separate, like the ones of them touching, I should say, I think are the new ones, and the ones of
Oh,
them
wow.
separate are the old covers.
So the separate ones are the new ones, or the
I think
kissing
they're the
ones?
old ones. I
Are the
think.
old? Okay. So we're talking
I
of like
think.
I'm looking at the scarred mage Roseward.
Hold on.
That's the one where they're kissing. Right. Turn this
Yeah.
around, can't I?
I didn't notice till I was looking
I
through
can't
them,
tell
and
if
all of a
you
sudden
can
I was
see
like,
that.
wait, what are the covers to book one? Yeah.
I've got to work out how to turn my camera around.
It's harder in live. It is.
I have no idea how to turn my camera around. Clueless when it comes to phones. Why is this so difficult? Flip camera. Then I
It's
can
all
actually
good.
see if I'm looking at the right one.
Yeah.
There we go. That.
Yes.
Scarred.
So that's the new one, and then we've also
That's the
gotten the
new.
folder,
Mm,
the first cover for it too, and I was like, oh,
got
I
it.
didn't realize she recovered them, but I kind of get why because it invokes so much more emotion.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Um,
here's number three. This one. The
uh-huh.
old number three.
Yeah. Like there's so much more emotion
There
and
is.
storytelling.
Yeah. In that one.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a level up.
Yeah. And flip camera. Oh,
Yeah.
and now get rid of the menu. There we go.
Well, and for that style, I will say the first ones that I was like, ooh, was Alicia Clapfeek's The Enchanting the Elven Mage, which by the way is a really good book. Um, I did actually enjoy that one as well. Hey,
Yeah.
it's good to see you. But yeah, it's such a good book as well. And I would say KD from Story Wrappers nailed
Yeah.
it on the
Yeah.
covers for that
Definitely.
series.
Yeah.
Oh, those were the first ones that really were like the style of the couple on the cover, like that really caught my eye. And
Yes.
then
So
after that, I
much.
started noticing everything. I
Yeah.
do feel like the genre, and those tend to be more sweet retellings, like dark retellings are kind of doing their own thing.
Okay.
But I feel like retellings are shifting into more couples. Because even a year and a half ago, most of them were the single girl on the thing, but it
Yeah.
was still,
Yeah.
you know, with lots of flowers or scrollies or,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Pretty much all my
and
mood board is single people, other than a few that are couples.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I do totally get why too, because I know I charge more to put another person on a cover,
Yeah. Same.
because it takes hours in your bedroom.
Yeah, and you've got to buy the assets and all sorts
Yeah,
as well. So there's a hard cost to it.
yeah, it takes me several extra hours at least,
Oh yeah.
even just for like trying to find the right stock photos for a head swap,
Yeah.
or and then the
It's
pink
amazing
and
how much
time.
time goes into that.
There's a reason I hired a really awesome PA who is really going to help me with that. Like she's worth every penny
Oh,
just for that part of her job.
I bet.
Totally.
Yeah, something I'm going to do one day.
Yeah. I was at the point where I was like, I've got to figure out some way to give myself more hours without actually taking more hours away from my daughter. and away
Yeah.
from my sleep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was the best solution I could come up with.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good solution. It's working well for you. But yeah,
Yeah.
just spend hours. I tried doing what you said and opened up a different browser to search in deposit photos, and it did came up with different stuff. It was fascinating.
Yeah. Totally different.
Yeah.
That's what's been it's been really interesting. Or even like sometimes just popping up incognito window so that it
Yep.
doesn't do
That's what I
any
did.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
different stuff pulls up for you.
Yeah. It's amazing. That's kind of why I found like the one I'm working on at the moment. I was like, I want it so that I'm looking up at her and stuff because I liked that perspective. And I couldn't think
Yeah.
of anything. And I wanted it as urban fantasy, sort of really urban and stuff. So I'm like, well, what can I do? Okay, they could be down the subway and looking up at the buildings and stuff. And I searched, I must have been searching for over an hour before I thought, right, that's it. I'm opening up an incognito window. I'm not finding anything. Sure enough, first thing came up. You've got to be
That's
kidding me.
awesome.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Oh
That's
dear.
crazy.
Yeah.
But
Got there in the end,
right.
but yeah, it would have been nice if they showed it to me now or before that.
Right. Well, and I do feel like urban fantasy has been doing a lot of um I feel like it's shifting in like the angles to like what you were doing with where it's not so head on. Like fantasy is still very head on for the most part, but
Yeah.
like the more urban, the more wonky the angles. Actually, that makes me think of another retelling one, which was a
Yeah.
cover that literally the book blew my mind. It's called Shattered Snow, and they just did a recover on it. I love both covers. Like I have no complaints for either one. They're both like object-based covers,
Okay.
but
I've not got one
Shattered
yet.
Snow, obviously it's a Snow White retelling, otherwise why would you have snow in it? But
Yeah,
it was
true.
really interesting because it's like people from the future have like this whole can't break the time stream sort of thing. So they have
Mm.
like an official record, and if anything changes, like they send people from the future into the past to like hunt down who's messing it up.
Yeah.
And and then there's like other people that will stash criminals or people from the future into the past, and there's someone who
Oh,
gets stashed into the past. And like the seven dwarves are all people that like they saved from different time periods. Like one of them's like a Roman dude, and yeah, it's so off the wall, and honestly
my
by
goodness.
far the most unique and like engaging retelling I've ever read. It was so
Wow.
good.
Wow.
I was
Yeah.
impressed.
Yeah. I have to read some of these. Yeah.
I went through a retelling like binge reading phase for probably a good 6 months.
Oh
So
wow. Wow. I haven't read too many of them yet, other than Mercedes Lackey. But yeah, I mean, you come across the odd one, but you don't realise they're retelling until it's like
yeah,
you're in it. You know?
that was the Princess Games for me. I had no clue it was a retelling until I got to book 2 in the series, and then I was like, oh, okay,
Yes.
so that was the story that was a retelling because it went from that to the Snow Queen, and I recognized the Snow Queen, and then everyone is like a different one. And
Yeah.
I feel so dumb now because each of the princesses that were were part of the like competition in it are all different princesses and each get their own book. And I was like, how did I not catch on
Yes.
to who they were?
Yeah.
It's
That's
Princess
funny.
Trials. Man, I'm the worst at names. Like literally the worst.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm joining the on that one. I'm not too good at names either.
Ooh.
What is that? Is
Okay,
that
I
a
gotta
dog
show you
toy?
because yeah, that's fine. I'm sorry. It's either he's on top of me or he's playing with his bone or his squeaky toy. Like, you know. But I'm just did a look at my fairy tale retellings in the top, the first 32 things,
Mm. Ooh.
and Spit'll actually show. But one of my covers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that like
That's
never
awesome.
happens. I'm really excited. Well, I mean, it happens from time to time. Like Sophie Davis or stuff, pops up. But
That's
and
awesome.
you saw that it's called Burn Baby Burn by Miranda Grant. It's really good. It's like a Roman twist, but I will say it is very steamy, like super graphic steamy. So you have to
Wow.
like that to be able to get
Yes.
into it. But it is really
Yes, you
good.
do. Perfect.
Yes. That was the thing. Like I have, I have like my friends I can refer these steamy books to, and then my friends I cannot refer steamy books.
Yes.
So I always try to give warnings, like if I know that something I'm referring is steamy, like just as a heads up, this is this
Yes.
rating level of steam.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good idea. Oh
totally worth
dear.
it.
Go.
I have that cover in my portfolio, and I just had somebody try to like buy it. Like, I'm
Oh,
sorry, that was a custom. It's been out for like almost been out for a year.
wow.
Sorry.
Yeah. I started putting little sold signs above mine so that it's obvious they're gone.
Yeah, I do that in my regular my like pre-mades, but not my portfolio, and I probably should do that in my portfolio.
Yeah.
Like that would be a good idea. But
Yeah.
like for me, normally if I look and like it has a author name that does not sound like something dealing with a book, normally I assume that it's owned by an author. But if it
Yeah.
says something like author name or page turner or like that kind of stuff, I assume it's
Yeah.
either the author has not released it yet and they're putting a fake name on it, or
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of thing.
That's the trouble.
Not all
Most
of
of
them can
the
be.
remakes that are like not bought yet or not released yet, as in I changed the title, but I'm putting up the one that I have. It still has arcane covers on it, even though it's
Yep,
bought. So I've started just putting sold signs on all of them, and then obviously the customs are just I put sold on because then you can tell. Just makes it easier to
totally
see.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, that totally makes sense. It's a good idea.
yeah.
Um,
I
so I
have
wanted to
no
ask.
idea
I'm
what
like
this.
looking.
I've got invite the host to a match.
Yeah, I don't really mess with those. I'm terrible at that kind of stuff.
I'm not even going to bother then.
You're good. I'm like I chat, but I don't mess too much beyond that.
Okay.
So, so I would love. Okay, so we'll first talk about like regular fairy tale retellings. I would
Okay.
love to know, what do you see, and then I'll share my stuff. What do you see are like cover tropes for retelling? Like, what makes you scroll by and go, that looks like it's about a retelling?
I think partly it's color. Like, you've got to recognize the fact that it's Snow White or Red Riding Hood, with a nice red cape, anything like that, and Cinderella in blue and things. But also gowns. And I know that there's gowns in other ones, but they pretty much, not all, but a lot have gowns. Um,
Yeah.
what else am I seeing? A lot of like flowers, um, is what I've seen quite a few of, flowers and leaves and that kind of thing to bring that sort of foresty vibe into it, because they
Yeah.
seem to mostly be set in forests if you think about like Snow White and all that lot. I know Cinderella was in a castle, but a lot of the others seem to be fairly nature based from what I can
Yeah.
sort of remember of fairy tales. So there's tends to be that, and then just symbols of it. So Snow White, apple. Sometimes you have a broom, that sort of stuff. Just anything that reminds you of that fairy tale, really, for me. What about you? What do you see?
I'm very similar with that, where I do, obviously not like all, but I would say it's definitely a trope to kind of match the Disney color for a princess to like her stuff so that it's immediate.
Yeah.
Also, like definitely the flowers, the scrolly type things,
Mm,
especially for details like around the edges, like on this, like around this area, tends
yeah.
to be very, very like a definitely a trope for it.
Yeah.
Also the typography for them for the most part tend to be more kind of an interesting mix of a very high fantasy, we'll put it that way, a very high fantasy type of typography. So they do tend to be definitely like sans serif. I always get those two mixed up.
Sans serif is
Sans
the
serif or
like
the,
sci-fi. Serif is the
yes,
one with
the
the little bits.
serif. I told you I'm terrible at names. So they, yeah, definitely serif, and they tend to
Yes.
have extra like swoops and swirls on the
Yeah.
typography for it.
The swoops and
And I think,
swirls that I've noticed a lot of.
yeah, and I think it just kind of like that with the flowers and the scrolly type stuff, like that tends to be very
Yeah,
just pushing it into the romance so that you know it's not just higher epic fantasy girl
yeah,
in dress. Like I feel like having the extra bit really goes, this is going to be a romance. And
yeah,
then, you know,
true. Yeah, because all the fairy
yeah.
tales are romances, aren't they? So
Yeah.
Mercedes Lackey
I
managed to
mean,
sidestep that
or at
one, but
least even the ones that aren't entirely, they tend to still become them because of Disney.
yes.
Disney was like, we are going to make everybody love these, so. And they weren't wrong.
No, no,
Yeah.
no, definitely not. But yeah, yeah, it's the swirly bits that I see a lot of. You're right.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah,
framing. That's kind of another thing that I would say is a trope,
yes,
is framing it, which is not something that you really see in other genres and subgenres for the most part. Like occasionally you see it in high fantasy,
yeah,
but for the most part you don't see that in non-fairy tale retellings currently. That could
yeah,
always change.
yeah,
But
yeah. I see it. I don't know. I see it a bit, I guess, but it's like it's not so much a trope, but it's almost like designer dependent, if that makes sense. I know some
yeah.
designers frame, sort of like stuff, more than others, but I guess you don't see it as the whole genre like that.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. Makes sense. So then what would you say would be kind of like stuff to look for in a cover to have an idea, like what you're seeing for tropes for a regular fairy tale retelling versus a dark fairy tale retelling? Like, have you noticed any differences in the covers?
I would think just the brightness of it. Like the darker ones do tend to be a lot more contrasty, a lot dark around the edges
Hmm.
from what I've seen. But other than that, I guess the people could be a bit more steamy than like your
Yeah.
sweet ones are, you know, dressed, and the more steamy ones are a little more risque with high slits and you know kissing poses, that kind of stuff. I
The
guess.
fun stuff.
What else have you seen on that?
You know, I think one thing that I've been seeing is I feel like the dark ones have been tend to have more typography and object based covers than
Yes,
regular fairy tale retellings. Um,
I think that's
even when
dark
you look at the
fantasy
top,
overall, though, isn't it?
yeah. Well, like even when you look at the top like 100, just the percentage between the two is a big difference between the dark retellings and the regular retellings of
Yeah,
object and typography based covers.
got it.
Um, which really makes a lot of sense because the dark ones are definitely still going to have more, they're still going to be leaning in the romance direction, but the plot isn't as reliant on it as a regular retelling. And so that kind of makes sense. I feel like the
Yeah,
more a plot is reliant on romance, typically the better it sells with a person on the cover most of the time.
that is true. Because people like to know who's what the characters look like for a romance for a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly dark fantasy has really gotten into the typography and symbol covers, and
Yeah.
you see them as well in YA because I know you were talking about them in YA, a while back. But yeah, you definitely see them in dark fantasy.
Yeah.
I really like
Which
them.
YA has been going really heavy in that direction, which I think may be part of why we are seeing so many of them. Because,
Yeah,
yeah, I really feel like YA, especially most of the big books that have been coming out that are YA recently, have been dark fantasy.
yeah, yeah. They're the ones I've been enjoying reading.
Oh, me too. I totally get it. They balance out the teenage angst with the like
Yes,
tension and drama and
yes.
yeah.
And if it gets too
Oh,
dark, I just flip a few pages
I'm
because
the
I'm too
same
much of a
way.
wuss.
I am too. And it's bad because like this is normally the month that I'm like, oh man, I want to like watch all of the Halloween stuff and I want to read all that stuff. And like even so, my level of what I can handle is still like, okay, I might have to like skim this and
Yeah,
see what's next.
yeah. No, my level is like way down. Scary stuff and everything like that.
Oh, I'm a wuss. 100%.
Oh, dear. I was
I'm so
watching
a
when I
wuss.
was at university. There was this massive soap opera on, and we were all watching it. And I ended up there was a cat caught in the chimney, and they thought it was a ghost. And I had nightmares for months. I'm just like, don't let me near a
No.
horror movie.
Yes. I like it.
Yeah.
My husband makes fun of me because during October I like to rewatch the Ghost Hunter episodes.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, really? First off, ghosts aren't real. And I'm like, you're wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, and I don't mess with that stuff. But
No.
like, and even when I watch that, like, it can't be the last stuff I watch before bed.
No.
Like, and I will say, like, I have a certain level. I don't DNF books and like movies and TV shows very often, but when it gets too dark, that is one reason that I will DNF something is just
What's
I like hit my
DNF?
I can't handle it point.
What's DNF?
Sorry, do not finish.
Oh, oh yeah. I've had a few of those. Yeah.
I feel terrible. I don't do heavy very well, and dark stuff tends to get really heavy and scary, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
do
managed
that.
Throne of Glass right through to I think it was the last, but yeah, it was the last book, wasn't it? And I was just, I flipped through a lot of that.
I haven't even had a chance to. Uh, I haven't even started that one. I've read all but the most recent. I read part of the most recent book for A Court of Thorn and Roses,
Okay, I haven't
which
read those yet.
that was an interesting one for me because like I totally thought that Akotar, when I first started it, like I immediately recognized it as this is a retelling. But then
Oh,
like it changed which retelling I thought it was gonna be, and then like it changed on actually being one, and I was like, okay, like how? Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how that
yeah.
continues. Ooh,
I've got
sorry.
them ready to read, but I haven't read them yet.
Yeah, I really love book two. Like as you will hear from everybody else, book two will steal your heart, and it will totally like change your opinion of absolutely everything
Oh, cool.
from book one,
Oh, cool.
100%. So
Excellent.
book one will feel like a total lie to you by the time you're
Awesome.
about halfway through book two. But
Awesome. Oh, that's
it's
really
so
cool.
good.
Yeah, I've got
I
about
haven't
six
had.
books on the go at the moment, so they're a little ways down the line.
Oh, I'm in the middle of doing a reading The Beast by Frost K. It's book four for that series. Like,
Nice. Not read that either. I need to.
okay, first off, anything by Frost K, I am like totally her and Casey L. Bond right now. I am like super hooked on all of their stuff.
Oh, nice.
But and it looks like she just did. Sorry, I was looking at the dark fairytale retelling covers on Amazon, and it looks like she just announced book five. So like the first three, I'm not sure if the first three for the Twisted Kingdom series was meant to be a retelling. It may have been, but I got too like engrossed in it to
Okay.
notice. And there's like
Yeah.
it's such a unique world. Plus, I am a sucker for like obnoxious kitsune men in books, and the love interest is one of those. So the first three is like their story, and I love that the woman, like the female character, she never like you know how sometimes by the end of a love story, when you're reading it, like the characters like meld into one, and like the women typically kind of lose who they
Mhm.
were.
Yep.
That does not happen in that story at
Oh,
all.
no.
Like I was so happy when the end of book one, she's like not with him. I was like, yes, like, you
Wow.
go.
Oh, I have to
But
read
yeah,
those.
so the first three are that. Book four I'm in the middle of right now, and it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but where the Beast is a dragon shifter, and
Oh, cool.
the like so that's really good. And she just announced the title for book 5, which comes out in April, which is called The Hood, and I'm guessing that means it's going to be a Robin Hood retelling.
Sounds that way.
As I
Cool.
would say, stop adding books to my immortal TBR.
I know. I've started listening to audiobooks because then at least I can like, you know, work and still do still listen, you know. So, oh,
Yeah, well, and I'm in them. I started. I need to read more of them. I am working my way through A Villain's Ever After, which is like it's an anthology. Silver Mercedes actually did one for it. I think she
huh.
may have done the Bluebeard one. I could be wrong though. Again, terrible with names. But it's one of those anthologies where every single person like has her own book and well, their own. I don't know if they're all female authors for this one.
Yeah.
Um, but where every single author technically gets their own book in this anthology with their own covers, and the covers are gorgeous. And but
Oh,
like the whole series is villains ever after, so it's like a twist on the retellings in that direction.
oh, that's cool.
And so I've,
I'll have to look that one up as well.
yeah, I've been working on that one. Like I had never seen. So it's funny because one of the gender bender retellings I'm planning is Bluebeard, and
Oh wow.
when she announced, "Hey, I just released this," I was like, "Oh, it's another Bluebeard! Oh my goodness!" Like, yes, I was so excited.
Nice. Nice.
My Bluebeard though is like probably 3 or 4 books out for me to actually get to writing it though. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. So, because you know, I do traditional publishing covers as well. And
Hmm.
one of the authors I did for that, I got sent the paperback for that. So I can't wait to read that. I've finished chapter 1 so far. It's so good. She's such a good writer.
Ooh.
So I've got that, but I've also got a non-fiction out of the library, so I want to get through that. The what was it called? Company of One. It was Mariah. One. It was Mariah who recommended that, and so I thought it's all about being freelancer and stuff, and like being the only person in the company, but having the attitude of the only person in the company, not necessarily being the only person in the company. So I thought that might be quite an
That makes
interesting book to read. Um,
yeah.
and then what else? Oh, I'm halfway through my first paranormal women's fiction, fantasy fiction, PWF. Um, I'm halfway through my first one of those on Audible. Then I am halfway through another one on Kindle that I'm like reading in the mornings. That is
How do you keep it all
all about
straight? Like I
witches.
can't. Oh.
Just, I don't know. They just seem to separate themselves. It's like an Academy Witch one, and the author joined my Facebook group, so I looked up her books, and she had this one up there as like, you know, I'm like, oh, that looks good. I'm gonna go read that one.
Right. I do that all the time. Authors would join my groups and I'm like, oh, I need to. TikTok just makes it even worse because I end up following all
Yes.
these authors and they're like releases stuff and I'm like, oh, I
Oh, that's
need
good.
to.
Yes.
Yeah, that was like AK Mulford for me. That was how I discovered her was I just kind of happened to stumble on her right around the time she was releasing her book and I got lucky. I'm so sad. Sorry, my brain's jumping everywhere. So like I was lucky and I got to be an ARC reader for book 1 for her. And like I will say it is one of the best books that I've read in a really long
Oh,
time.
cool.
And she just sent out to her newsletter the signups for her ARCs for book 2. And TikTok is a beautiful destruction to book budgets. Yes, it is.
Yes.
But yet for some reason, like I didn't get her newsletter, even though I know I'm signed up for it because I got the free book from it. But
Yeah.
like I didn't get the newsletter to sign up for ARCs for book 2, which I still bought book 1 because that's how I roll. Like I just get excited to get to read them early. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I used to be one of the beta readers for ST Ben, so I was going through all of her books and giving feedback and then promoting it on launch day, and it was a blast doing that.
Oh
It
yeah.
was a long time ago though. It was before I was even an author.
Oh,
So
I love getting to
yeah,
ARC and beta read stuff. I think that's
yeah,
part of why I like working how I do as a cover designer because I get to do that for so many of my authors. And
nice.
like so it's just so much fun for
Yeah,
me. Don't get me wrong, I will let them know like, hey, like this is a genre I'm okay with making covers for, but like I'm hit or miss on the books, like for reading it. Because I will fully admit I lean more into darker art than I can handle reading.
Yeah,
So,
ditto.
it's true. You and I both love dark fantasy art, but like
Yes.
we're wusses when it comes
The,
to.
yeah, the reading, I'm too much of a wuss.
Well, and I've been doing. I realized the last like 4 months, almost all of my customs I've been doing is contemporary fantasy,
Oh,
which
wow.
is very funny to me. So, contemporary fantasy romance, which is really funny to me because it's not a genre that like I naturally lean into for art or for um,
Yeah,
reading, like at all. I've enjoyed the books because, like I said, if I can get my hands on them to read them, I do. Like I enjoy doing that, and I'm
nice.
excited because two of them just sent me signed copies, and so that means that I have
Lovely.
physical copies I had purchased that I now am gonna leave like little fun facts in them about the covers, like the process of it, and go drop them in some of the free little libraries in my area. Which I
That's
realized
awesome.
I should totally start putting that like up on TikTok. Like there's that woman that she did the random like stints for a while of her like dropping her book off, like throwing over the walls of like Disney and
Oh,
Universal and stuff like
oh my
that.
goodness.
And like that always made me laugh. I was like, you know what though? Like that'd be I'd be totally cool being known as the cover designer that like buys the
Yeah,
books and leaves stuff and like puts them in little free libraries. Like I'm
yeah,
totally cool with being a cover designer.
yeah. Yeah, that'd be really cool. I made the
So
mistake of
besides
taking my
those
first one to the actual library, and they rejected it. I think they threw it away.
oh,
Yeah. So, oh well.
I haven't even been to our library in so long. Ours keep opening and closing. So like
Oh
it's hard
well.
to keep track of if they're open or closed.
Yeah,
So I haven't even put in
yeah.
effort the last year and a half.
I get a lot of ebooks from them, but yeah, I've actually got this one was a physical book that Company have won because yeah, they didn't have an ebook. Otherwise, I'd have read that. But they
Yeah.
are open. I think they've been open the whole time, actually. Amazingly.
I do a ton of ebooks because my toddler is obsessed with books too. So if
Yeah,
mommy's reading a physical book, she needs to come and like flip the pages and see what
it's
mommy's reading.
not necessarily when you want the pages flipped.
Yes. And then I lose track of where I was. But if it's
Yeah,
ebook, I can just like turn off the screen when she comes up and touches it, and I'm good. No
yeah,
worries.
yes,
So almost everything I read right now is ebook.
yeah, yeah. I never thought I'd read an ebook. This was like back when was it 2009? I think one of my friends bought a Kindle, and I thought, no, I'd never do that. I love books, and why would I ever want to do that? That's never going to catch on. And then the following year, I got one. And I haven't read a physical book since, unless I have to.
I have never even bought a Kindle. I use the
Oh
Kindle app
wow!
on my phone, and
Oh my
like
goodness! Yeah, you know
I've
what I'm
never
like
even
with
bought a
my
Kindle.
phone. Kindle.
It's hard because when it's on my phone, I'm not gonna lie, I totally end up sitting there. Like it's hard to not be distracted by Facebook Messenger when an author pops up on there for me, or like it's
Yeah,
really
true.
hard to not get distracted. So that is a bit of a problem. But that
Yeah,
does mean I always have a book with me. So when I'm stuck somewhere
true.
waiting, I
Yeah,
always have
very
books.
true. Yeah, Sarah's just joined us and she says she does audiobooks. And I totally get that having started listening to this one.
I've only listened to a couple audiobooks. My attention span's really bad.
Yeah, I thought mine would be, but then I've been sort of watching like TV, Tubi and stuff, all the movies and stuff, and I find I'm ending up looking at the screen. So this stops that happening because there's nothing to look at. So then I'm focused on my work. So I'm actually better doing audiobooks than I am just like listening to TV in the background.
Oh, that's an
So,
interesting. Like I
yeah,
had no clue.
yeah,
That's interesting. I'm
yeah.
trying to think. There's a YA.
And Sarah does the
So
same thing.
I need to try that.
Yeah,
There's like a sci-fi trilogy that I think it's a trilogy. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I own the physical ones, but it's outside my daughter's door, and I don't want to bother her when she's trying to fall asleep. But literally the best. So I read the book, and the book was so cool because it doesn't read like a regular book. Like it literally, it's like looking at pictures of physical reports of what happens. And
Oh
it took
wow.
me a while. Like one, that formatting had to have taken like a year just for
Oh
the
my God. Yeah,
formatting. I
I
mean,
can't even imagine.
I feel like my brain's telling me like the Illuma something. Um, but because it's in that format, one, it takes a little bit to get into to read because you're so used to just reading words. Um,
Yeah.
but the audiobook blew my mind
Oh,
because
cool.
it was it wasn't just one person reading. They had multiple people doing the different
Oh, wow.
parts and like
Oh,
the
I love it
sound
when that happens.
effects
Yeah.
and like
You
oh
feel like
my
you're in a
gosh, it was
radio play.
yeah. It totally, when I was listening to it, actually, that was, it made me think of, I mean, obviously not like plot wise, but it kind of made me go, okay, I could totally see how people could have been fooled by that prank. What was it like forever ago, but where they did a prank on one of the radio stations that's now super famous, where like a spaceship crashed in some farm and
Oh, yeah.
everything, and everyone believed it. And for the longest time, I was like, I totally don't see how that could have happened. And then I read that book, and I was like, okay, yep, I get it now.
Was it
I
called
could see.
Sleeping Giants? Sarah says.
No, I'm trying to remember what it is. It's gonna bother me now. Sorry.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's so good. Try this.
Because I thought a lot of the like little RPG audiobooks went the that kind of route with lots of different characters done by lots of different people. But when I asked the publisher about that, they said that those audiobooks don't sell as well, amazingly. I thought they'd sell much better.
I've had a lot of people tell me they didn't care for them
Yeah,
because they were it was harder for them to pay attention to, and
got you.
like they liked the idea of like they liked feeling like someone was reading to them instead of feeling
I
like
think
they were
that's the thing.
visual.
Yeah. Is it Illuminate? Oh,
Yes.
yes,
My
that's the
brain keeps
one.
saying
Oh, Sarah.
Illuminati. That's it. It's so good. So good. The whole series is really good. I will say the main character will piss you off multiple times. But I mean, that's what a good main
Still have to
character
read it.
does. Yeah. It's really good. And I highly suggest at least looking to see what the physical version looks like and like listening to the audiobook because that's one of the few times I've actually done both and like felt like it was totally worth it. Because
Oh
they're
wow.
such unique experiences for both of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. I read one that was, I guess it started with a report. It was, several years ago. And I had no clue it was romancy. I thought it was pure fantasy, but it wasn't. Um, I think it was called Aphrodite's Kiss. I cannot remember the author's name. And the covers at the time, they've been recovered, but the covers at the time were like pure romance. And I asked for them for Christmas, and my mother in law was like, "What are you reading?" But they were absolutely brilliant. It started off with a report from the High Council because it was all about superheroes and half superheroes. You know, sort of one parent was a superhero and things. And it was really, really cool.
Oh, that
It's the
is
only like
cool.
sameness that I could think of when you said it was all like reading reports and yeah, it was really cool.
Well, like for example, okay, again, I know my phone is gonna be really hard to see, okay, so I apologize. But like when you pull this up on Amazon, just the preview, let's see if I can get it pull up. Like these are the pages. Like they literally look like actual
Down a
reports.
bit, down a bit, and then to your right a bit.
Sorry.
That's it. That's
Okay.
perfect. Oh, no,
Okay,
left a
so
bit.
that's the cover, but like these are the interior pages.
Oh, cool.
It's so
Oh
different.
my goodness, that is different.
Yeah, like I said, it's a totally, that's why I would say totally suggest doing both because the experience is so unique for both. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Sorry. I don't even read very
Interesting.
I don't even read very much sci-fi. That one just kind of like intrigued me from the cover because the cover's so different. And
Yeah.
and actually I first heard about it because I'm not going to mention the author because she's very controversial. But before she became controversial,
Oh no, you're back.
and there we go. Sorry. But yeah,
Sorry.
before she became controversial, I followed her on Instagram, and she was like, "This is the best audiobook I have ever like listened to," and I was like, "Okay, I've got to check this out." And then when I saw it, I was like, "Yeah, I get it, totally get it now."
That's so cool. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I haven't read sci-fi in ages. I started out in sci-fi, and I remember reading Arthur C. Clarke's, what was it? Islands in the Sky. That was the first sci-fi book I ever read. That have you read that one?
No, I don't read a whole ton of sci-fi. I
Oh, that was
did have a, yeah. Okay,
he
tell me the name
basically
again. Now I gotta like go look.
Islands in the Sky, and the main character basically was on a game show, and he'd like spent I don't know how many years preparing for this game show because he was determined to win, and the prize was a full round trip or paid holiday, whatever it was, to anywhere on Earth or something like that. And he'd researched and he'd got a lawyer and he'd researched the wording. And anywhere on Earth at that point was defined up to so many thousands of feet above the Earth, which included the space station. So when he won, he's like, "I want to go to the space station," and they tried to get out of it, but the lawyers were like, "Well, it is in the contract and stuff." And it was all about his journey to the space station and his time on it. It was just fascinating.
That sounds interesting. It's
Yeah,
funny because you'd think I would read more sci-fi, and I have nothing
yeah.
against it. I just tend to read
I
more
just read
fantasy.
fantasy. Yeah,
Yeah. But I
same.
watch a ton of sci-fi.
Oh right,
Like,
I don't. I watch fantasy too.
I do too.
Fantasy or romance.
I will say though, it may partially be because I feel like there's more better like made sci-fi movies than there are fantasy ones.
Yeah, there's not
And
great fantasy movies, but there's a
yeah, there's
few, but
not very many
many.
that really like feel that same level of like
Yeah,
quality.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah says if you want to try a sci-fi series, Murderbot is great. I've never even heard of that.
Ooh, I haven't either.
Ah,
I'm putting that on my list at the moment.
yeah. But yeah, fantasy
I
movies
think
they are quite often not well done in the special effects
no.
department. But,
Yeah, it's
yeah. No,
that is one
I
thing that
watch
has
rom
me
coms.
excited. I've been doing a lot of rom-coms and just a ton of Korean and Chinese shows recently.
Right.
My Netflix looks like that's like all I watch right now
Yeah,
because that's basically all I've been watching for like 6 months.
I know. I'm the same. I'm at the moment. I seem to be going like after one cheesy Christmas movie after another. It's like you get to the end and it recommends five more, so you put them all on your list.
So I pay for I started paying the yearly thing for Friendly. It's like an app that does a bunch of TV channels. And it's like I pay like 50 something a year for it, but I
Yeah.
get a ton of live TV channels, including all of the Hallmark ones.
Oh,
And you can like choose to record stuff with it and you can like watch them on demand. And I literally got it. It's I found it was cheaper for me to do it that way and just keep it year round so that I could have like the fall and Christmas Hallmark movies. And
nice.
then yeah, and it was funny because then I have my kid and they have a baby channel that literally all day it just plays baby shows and
Oh,
like
nice.
toddler shows. And I was like, well, okay,
Yes.
now it just pays for itself again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've only just discovered Tubi, and it's free TV, free movies, and all sorts. And
Hmm.
I've just been plowing through that. They have a lot of cheesy Christmas movies.
I love that. I actually, it's funny. It's got to be longer than 6 months then that I've been watching the Korean and like Chinese and just that part of the world
Yeah.
for stuff because I started watching it when I started feeling the burnout coming on from just
That was a while ago.
overbooking myself, and I think that
Yeah.
started in like January.
Yeah.
And I started watching them because it forced me to not touch my phone because I needed to read the subtitles.
That's a good
And
idea.
since And that's why I've been watching them like after work every night. I'll do that. So I have to like stay off of my phone and disconnect
Yeah,
enough to actually,
yeah, it's a clever idea.
and they tend to
I
not be
tried
super
to watch
heavy.
some of the Chinese ones because I love like the kung fu kind of ones, but I couldn't like hack looking at the subtitles and then trying to work out what I was doing, and I just yeah.
I grew up with my mom watching like all of these European movies with subtitles.
Oh
And
right.
then I married a guy who loves anime.
Oh
So I had lots of practice before.
yeah, yeah. My
I'm also
parents like grew up
incredibly
watching
fast.
French movies, but they speak French. So they didn't watch the subtitles.
That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love
One
that.
movie I did find that I absolutely love. I don't know if you've seen it. It's Matt Damon, and it's I think it's called The Great War. It was a fantasy movie, and really well done one.
Yeah.
That was really
I
cool.
I know I've seen it, but again, memory.
Yeah.
I swear it feels like my brain just over the last few months has like had just reached its maximum limit of like what it can intake, and it has to decide like what to dump for me to be able to have a memory again.
Oh my
Fun
goodness.
fact though, I did find out like a year ago that when you get pregnant, your brain literally rewires. And
Oh,
so, like, in order for you to be able to do better at like, it kind of is a rewire so that you're able to be a better multitasker for like your intuitive stuff for kids.
huh.
And it permanently rewires your brain. So that's why so many, like, there's the mom brain that everyone jokes about. There's like a
Yeah.
legitimate science, like, backed
I had
thing
no
now.
idea.
And I was like,
Wow.
okay, this explains so much.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing. Yeah, I had
Yeah,
no idea.
random. I didn't either until I saw it. It made me feel so much better though, because I was like, how did I get so dumb after having my kid? Like, how? That's how.
Oh my goodness. God, I had no idea.
Besides, add on the lack of sleep and,
Yeah,
from
exactly. That's
having a
what
child.
I figured it would be. But
That
yeah,
doesn't help.
yeah, yeah. Permanently on overtired mode. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. I had no idea.
So then it does make me curious because we're talking about movies. Do you
Yeah.
have so like, we were talking about retellings and that kind of thing. So like, is there a or there's several like retelling movies that you
There are.
feel like you
There's
nailed
some
it?
really good ones. What was it called? Enchant? Amy Adams and Patrick Dempsey. It is really cool. Have you seen that one?
Yes, and I think if it's the one I'm thinking of, let me double check.
She's in Fairytale Land, and then she goes through a portal. She gets pushed down a well and goes through a
You're
portal and
doing a
comes up in
second
New
one.
York. I
You're
love that
doing a
one.
second one for
Enchanted.
that.
Thank you.
Yes,
They're doing a second one. Oh, I did hear
they
that. You're
are.
right.
They just announced
I
it.
can't wait for that. That was such a great movie. I love it when she like cuts out the curtains and has a new dress.
Yeah.
That was so good. She's an amazing singer as well.
Yes. And she's just so adorable anyways. Like anything she's in, I'm like,
I
"Aw."
know. I pretty
Even
much
when she's
watch
the
all her
bad
movies.
guy. What was it? Netflix suggested to me recently a movie where she's the bad like she's like
Bad
it's
guy.
not a
Oh,
fantasy one, but where she literally is like kind of like plays the bad guy in it. She sleeps with her
okay.
best friend's fiance. And I'm like, I can't
I've
even be
seen.
mad at you because you're so freaking adorable. Like it's
Yes.
not fair.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. It's not wedding date, is it? Because she sort of pretty much does that in that one too.
I don't know. It might have been. I
That's
can't
my favorite
remember.
movie of all time.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
I love
It's
that
a good
movie.
movie.
It is a good
It's
movie.
a really good movie.
I've lost count of the number
So
of
what
times I've
other
watched it.
I've got multiple like that they're my
Yeah.
like and there's certain ones that I'm like, I'm in this mood. I need this movie right
Mhm.
now. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Colin Firth's Pride and Prejudice series. That's the one for me,
Yeah.
just over and over and over. And then Amazon took it off, like Amazon Prime. I'm like, no, because I have it, I own it, but I've got the English version, so I can't play it here on the computer because it has to be an American version. So,
Is that the BBC one?
bye, Sarah. Yes, the BBC
Hi,
one.
Sarah. So
Yes,
Hulu has
with
it.
Jennifer
You have
L.
Hulu?
Sorry,
If
who
you
has
have
it?
Hulu, Hulu has it.
We let Hulu go, unfortunately. I did have it for a while, but we just found we weren't watching anything on it, so there was no point paying for it.
I only have Hulu because it came packaged with my Disney.
Yeah, which we don't need, so we don't have
Yeah.
without kids. I can see why you have it,
Yeah,
but
right.
yeah,
Yeah. It was like we've got like ESPN with it and that kind of stuff. We don't watch sports, but
yeah,
it all came
yeah,
together. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Nice. But yeah, no, we had it for a while, but yeah, just don't watch it anymore. So
So then
yeah,
I am curious. You said you had other retelling movies that you like love. So what are
yes.
some of the other ones?
Oh goodness, of course they're going completely out of my head again. Um, the Maleficent one. What was that called? That
Yes,
Angelina Jolie. She was really good in that. And then there
I
was another
agree.
one with her in it that was basically Snow White, but I cannot remember. The Huntsman. That's it.
Oh, that was
That
really
was really
good.
good. I liked that one a lot.
That was really good.
I loved how like non like diminutive she was. You know, she was just going out and kicking everyone's butts. I loved that about it.
Yeah. Well, and Mirror Mirror was like that for me too.
Yes,
Like
that was another good
plus
one.
like Julia Roberts I adore anyways,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
that helps. Yeah.
I can't think of any others at the moment. Don't know.
I will fully admit one of my favorites is the
Oh,
Cinderella with Whitney Houston.
I don't think I've
Um,
seen one.
oh my goodness. So Whitney Houston plays the fairy godmother and Brandy, the singer, plays Cinderella. It's I mean, first
I've
off,
not
those
seen
two
that
like
one.
it's so good. And it's cool because the prince actually is like in real life, he's the cousin of one of my friends.
Oh
So
my
I was
goodness.
we were talking about these movies and she was like I was like, "Yeah, I love this movie. Like I'm watching it right now." And she was like, "You're not gonna believe this, but he's my cousin." And I was like, "What?"
Oh my goodness. I've thought of another one I absolutely love. It's Ella Enchanted with Anne
Yes.
Hathaway. That was such a good one. I love that
That was
one.
a really good movie. The book is amazing too. They're so different,
I've not
and I
read the book.
loved both. I didn't care that the movie was different than the book because I loved it. Like I loved both that much.
Oh, cool. I have to read it. I had no idea it came from a book. I absolutely
Yeah.
love the movie again. I don't know how many times I've seen that one. A
Well,
lot.
and okay, so the like fairy chick from Ella Enchanted, the movie,
Uh-huh.
she's the queen in the new Cinderella that Amazon just put out.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I have to see that
And
one.
so
There's another
that
one with
one,
Barrymore in it as well, that was really good. She was basically
ooh, Ever
Cinderella.
After.
Ever After, that's it. Love that one too.
Yes, I do too. I need to find that one again. I've actually been thinking that I needed to rewatch it and then
Yeah, I
just
rewatched it
not.
recently because we had the DVD for that one. Really like that
I'm
one.
terrible about remembering to use my DVDs. It's really
Yeah,
bad.
yes. Actually went and bought a DVD drive for the computer because we never get to the TV.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
mostly use our we mostly use our PlayStation for
Oh,
that.
right. Oh, I don't have a PlayStation. I just
My
sit on the
husband's a
computer all
gamer.
day.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. And like I got hooked on it. I need to finish it. But there's a TV show that's called Grimm that's
Oh,
also really, really good. But it's like a mix between like a cops detective kind of show and like fairy tale retellings. It is a little bit on the darker side, but it's not really dark. I don't know.
got
It's
it.
hard to explain, but
I think the title
really,
put me off with that one because it sounded dark. I thought
Yeah,
of
like
another one when you
it's
said hooked you on it. Hook.
yeah.
That was a retelling of Peter Pan. That was so good too.
And
I
the
really
first
love
couple
that.
seasons of Once Upon a Time were awesome,
Oh
and then just like
yes.
each season seemed to get a little bit lamer.
Yep.
But the Hook
And,
made me think of that because like I still have a total crush on Captain Hook in that. Like,
yep.
how could you not?
Exactly. And Tenth Kingdom as well. That was really
Yes.
good.
I
A
think
really good
Amazon
one.
still is it Amazon or Netflix that has that right now. Oh, I can't
No
remember.
idea. I
That
watched
is
it
actually one of
a long time
the
ago.
very first like retellings I remember actually watching that wasn't like a kid one, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yes. I love Bo Peep or whatever she is, the
Yes. And like
shepherdess.
the little
It's
sassy
awesome.
flirt.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
that
so
I think that the actor from that, the one that plays the wolf, I think he was one of the reasons I fell in love with Gilmore Girls because
all
he
right.
plays one of her interests.
All right.
Well,
I've not
that's the
seen
thing,
that.
you need to watch Gilmore Girls because I'm like, I will fully admit, if I could like decide the kind of woman I was going to be, and like, it would be a combination between the mom from Gilmore Girls, Lorelai, and the mom from The Good Witch on Hallmark. Like,
I've seen the
there's
I've seen one called The Good Witch. It's
they
a
had a couple
girl with sort of
movies.
bob cut.
Hmm.
Okay, it is.
So they did a
Oh,
couple
cool.
movies, and the movies did so well they decided to like reboot it as a show with all the same actors and everything. And like it's still airing with new episodes.
Oh my goodness. I had no
Netflix
idea.
has a bunch of the seasons right now.
Oh, I
And
got
then
it. I have to have a look.
do it.
It's called The
I'll
Good
just
Witch.
add it to your list. Yeah, The Good Witch.
Oh,
It's
cool.
so
Because I
good.
really liked the first season, but I had no idea they did any more.
Oh yeah, it's got like 7 or 8 right now, I think, something like that.
Oh, cool.
It might be
Yes.
less. There's a and yeah, I loved that like the daughter, one of the daughters on that was the daughter from what was young Snow from Once Upon a
Okay.
Time. And I was like super
Oh,
excited about
wow.
that.
I don't remember that. I watched it too long ago, I think. I just remember I really enjoyed it. And there was another one that I really enjoyed. Again, I cannot remember the name. You cast a spell on me, or something like that. Basically, the guy comes from a magical family and he falls in love with a muggle, but not so named. And it's all about revealing the fact that he has magic, and she ends up taking his magic by mistake. Um,
Oh, okay. It keeps getting recommended to me. I think on Netflix. I
yes,
think.
it's definitely on Netflix. And it was the guy who was the boyfriend in, oh god, what was it called? There was a really good series where a guy worked at something like Best Buy, but it wasn't Best Buy. Obviously, it was a made-up company, and he got like Chuck. Thank you. Chuck was the series, and the guy who was the main from this was the boyfriend on Chuck, like his sister's boyfriend.
Ooh.
He's a good actor, and it was a really good series. Really enjoyed it. Both of them actually, but the movie was really cool, and it was kind of fairy tale-ish.
I could see that. I haven't, man, it's been a long time since I watched Chuck.
Yeah,
It's been a long time.
yeah. It's been a long time since I watched it too. I went from there to White Collar, and I loved that.
Yes, we
Oh
did
my
too.
goodness, I love that.
Yep, we did the same thing.
Yep. So can
I
you
was just
think of
looking at
any
this,
more retellings?
and like I was trying to think of like TV shows or movies.
Yeah.
Those are probably my favorites that I rotate through. I did notice, I forgot I was going to mention this earlier. Have you noticed a uptick? I think it may have something to do with Lore having come out last year, I think it was, which is a YA fantasy book. But I feel like I've seen an uptick in Greek, like fairy tale retelling type things,
Ah,
especially Hades Persephone love
I have
stories.
Hades stuff, but I assumed it was just demon stuff. I didn't realize it was retellings.
Yeah, I because I do know that they're like in the original lore that like they got together, but
Yeah.
I like, even as I'm scrolling through the top like 100 stuff in the retellings, a bunch of them are
Oh,
Hades
wow.
Persephone's retellings, which is
I had no
I
idea.
kind of they kind of make sense when you consider that like we were talking about how we're seeing more of the dark
Yeah.
fantasy creeping into this. Like
Yeah.
I get because I mean Hades is like the epitome of the bad boy
Exactly.
for but
Exactly.
he's like seems to somehow actually like Hades, I swear, is the most sane of all of the Greek gods. Like he's the only
Yeah.
one who's responsible about his job or
Yeah.
basically a bad boy of them, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah. It's like watching Lucifer as well, that series. And he's the
Yes.
only kind of responsible sane one as well half the time. I love that series too.
I was so happy when Netflix picked it up and like decided
Uh-huh.
I feel like it's actually gotten better since Netflix took it over, which
Oh,
says a
really? Oh,
lot.
cool. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the latest season because we watched a bit, like, I think it was the first half of the first episode in the new season, and my husband was like, "Yeah, I'm over this," so I haven't watched it since.
We haven't watched the most recent one that just got released,
Got you.
like I think in the last month or something like that. I haven't done that yet.
Okay, I might be a
There we go.
season behind you, or I might be that's the same one. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I think I've only seen one of Netflix's seasons.
okay. In that
I
case,
think.
that's the one I haven't seen yet. I don't think I've seen any of Netflix's ones.
Yeah,
But
they just released a second one of theirs, and
oh, cool.
I'm like
Get
trying
them.
to convince my
Good.
husband that that should be what we watch next, even though we're in the middle of a bunch of other stuff.
Yes.
You know,
We seem to be watching
about
a
that.
baking show at the moment, despite
Ooh,
neither
which
of
one?
us eats cookies or cakes or anything like that. We're
So I
watching a
have to know
Great
which.
British Bake Off. I think it's because
It's
it's
so
British.
good.
Yeah.
It's so good. I was
Uh
so
huh.
sad. Oh, what's her name? Okay, this is gonna sound really insensitive, but it's only because again, I cannot remember names. But the first few seasons has like
Mary
the
Berry.
tall lesbian chick with like short dark hair.
Oh yeah, as the host, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I adore her. And before she did that show, she did another British show that was her with a radio host friend, and they like lived in um like they would choose different time eras and they would have
Oh,
to live in that time era for a week, like with the diet and the dress, and like they had to act like they were like to like learn, and like there's it may have been a couple weeks for each one, but they were doing it to like they actually saw a doctor before and after to see what the health
yeah.
benefits versus like you know negative
Cool.
things
I'd like
were.
to see
And
those.
she's so funny in that because she's like, what is wrong with these people? Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah,
So
I
good.
watched something similar. It was called, was it the Victorian Farm? Was one of the seasons, and they were like a
Mhm.
year long there. And then the
Mhm.
Edwardian Farm and so on, and it was just amazing. But I don't know. She was a historian for basically home ec, and one of the
Yes.
guys was a
Same.
archaeologist, I think.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it was a fascinating series,
I've
and I love
seen
the Christmas
parts of
episodes
all of
as well.
those.
Okay,
Yes.
we've watched the whole thing. It was just absolutely fascinating. But there's a recent one that's actually still going. They're building a castle in France from scratch, the way that they used to build castles.
Oh.
They've been going for 17 years so far, and these three people had like I don't know how many months basically, being there, living there, and building and stuff. Absolutely incredible. They had these basically like human powered hamster wheels that were how they get the blocks of stone up to the top of the castle. It's just incredible to see. So,
Oh, that is. I can only imagine. That's one
yeah,
thing I've thought about a lot, actually. Like when I've been, because I mean, come on, you can't read a like fairy tale retelling or really any fantasy book without castles. And when
yeah,
you really think about like how long these took to build, so
yeah.
like you had to have been insane to have not decided to build your castle at the beginning of your reign and hope you lived long enough to ever get to live in
I
it.
know,
Like,
I
how
know,
crazy is that to think of?
I know. Considering this one's relatively small and they've been going 17 years and they're still, you know, Barely past the second floor.
Right? Well, and just
Yeah,
thinking of like how, I mean, like it's just the process of it, not counting the money, and that was one thing that was interesting to me with studying some of the Egyptian stuff, like when they discovered the old city that was right there. Yes, that's what she was saying, like the pyramids. Yeah, exactly. Like the fact that there was that whole city right there. And it totally makes sense because how else could they have done that? They had to have like their own economy
yeah,
to be able
basically.
to do that because they took so long.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Well, that's how these castles. This is what they were saying. That's how these castles started. As all of the workers like became a village around it, and as they built it
mhm.
up, and they didn't come with anything. They sort of got there and they built their own tools while they were there, and they used
Yep.
those tools to then build the castle. And yeah, it's just amazing. And the
I love
blacksmith
watching that.
was basically the center of everything.
Yeah. It's interesting when you think that like blacksmiths really kind of had they were fairly powerful people, especially
Very.
for the level of society that they sat in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they
I mean,
really
everyone
did.
had to come to them, whether you were noble, king, or whatever. If your horse needed a horseshoe or you needed a weapon or whatever, right through to
Uh-huh.
the poorest of the poor who needed a pot. Everyone
Exactly.
came to the blacksmith. So, yeah,
That would be an interesting story. Like something that's like, of course, me being me, it'd probably be like a female main character. But it'd be interesting to like do a book about like a blacksmith and like them manipulating something, like some sort
yeah,
of like something going on within the royal court, or
that would be cool.
that would be a
That'd be very
really,
cool.
yeah, to explore that.
Yeah, that reminds me
Like,
of A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger.
yes, another amazing movie.
Yeah, that was an awesome movie.
Oh, she says there's a book called The Hangman's Daughter. That sounds really familiar. The Hangman's Daughter.
Not heard of that one.
Said, didn't realize the power that the hangman had. Yeah. There's a couple like positions when you really think history wise of people that had way more power than
Yeah,
they realized, I think, in all
yeah,
honesty. Like, I mean, one, the, oh, she's gonna look up the author for us. The Hangman's Daughter. 'Cause that's a really good point. Because, yeah, I was thinking about like the poison taste testers. They had a lot of power. I mean,
yeah.
like, especially since so many poisons, if you just let your body work up to it, you can handle certain poisons. So,
True.
like, imagine, you know, they really, one, they got to eat really good food.
Yes, or at least a mouthful of it.
Yeah. Like, they had a ton of power. And, I mean, merchants knew that they had a ton of power.
Yeah.
Like, Oliver Potts, Potsch, is the author for The Hangman's Daughter. I am typing that down at the moment as well. Excuse me there. Because now I'm really intrigued. And even just for like building a story, that would be like really some interesting stuff to use for like subplot to
Yeah.
really like
Yeah.
define and build.
It would.
I'm just imagining like something where by the end of the book, like the beginning of the book, you start like with the feeling of like the king and queen having all this power. But then by the end of it, like they feel like they're nothing
Yeah.
almost,
Yeah.
like
And you
because
realize
of
who's actually
how,
got the power.
yeah, like because the higher up in ranking, like the less important they really are kind of thing.
Yeah.
That would be a really, of
Yeah.
course, again, it would have to be like dramatic and fantasy because I don't want
Yeah.
to spend my time writing non-fantasy stuff because I write to escape.
Exactly. That's why I read fantasy.
Oh, she says he does a lot of medieval Germany, which my whole family, like, not my whole family, my dad's side is Germany. So, like, I love reading this stuff. So if you like Hangman, even though he kills people for the government.
Yes, there is that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Ooh, that
Back to
cover's really cool
retellings.
too for that.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was just pulled up the Hangman's Daughter so I could add it to my like list, and the cover's kind of cool. The typography is really pretty, and it's cool because it's literally just like her feet. Ooh, oh, what was it called? My book club had me read a Cinderella retelling.
Uh-huh.
Oh, see if I can remember the name. We'll see. Maybe eventually. But it was really interesting because it was during. Oh, she says. Oh, he has other skills and trades. Nice. So it was like a retelling, but it's from like it's set in World War II, I think,
Uh-huh.
and the or like right after. It's right in that time period, but they're like direct descendants of Cinderella. And so
Oh,
like the dress and the shoes and all of that actually hold magic,
okay.
and this young woman ends up being put in guard of this stuff. Oh, it was because her family, no, her family wasn't a direct descendant. They were protecting the stuff for the direct descendants because they were like the dressmakers, like direct descendants of the dressmakers. And
Got
so they're
it.
supposed to like hide it. And like the magic of this stuff was actually what was causing World War II or something like that. But she ends up putting the stuff up on display
Yeah.
in like a store window, and all
Yeah.
sorts of drama passes from it. That was
Oh,
another one that was like such a
that would be
unique
fascinating to read.
twist. So they were mice. Very cute
Oh my
mice.
goodness. Yeah. That made me think actually of another series by Mercedes Lackey that I read, The Elemental Masters. And one of those was very, well, not that loosely based off of Cinderella as well. She was basically Cinderella. So yeah, even though the rest of the series was more about um, the elemental masters and the magic and stuff like that, this one was very very tightly based on Cinderella. It was amazing. I never really thought of it before.
Yeah, I could. It's interesting to me. I love seeing what levels different people, when they're doing their retellings, like what level of like how close to someone else's version of a retelling they did. Because really, we're
Yeah,
used to like basing them off of Disney's retellings, but I mean,
exactly.
Disney's, so many of theirs are such loose retellings
Yeah,
of Grimm.
yeah, yeah. I love it
So I
when they
like it
twist
makes me laugh when,
completely.
yeah, like it makes
That's
me
what
laugh when I see people talk about like, but Frozen is just the Ice Queen. I'm like, the only thing similar between the two is that she has ice power.
got
Like,
you.
really, when you read the original, no.
Got you. I haven't actually read The Ice Queen. But
Even though, like, most of the retellings, that's what something is I found really interesting. Most of the retellings for the Ice Queen are based off of the original and not off of any Disney ones, which is one of the
oh,
very few. It says like the Twilight FSOG retelling. What's FSOG? I'm bad at remembering these.
I have no idea.
I don't know, I'm like really curious now. Twilight FSOG.
I'm gonna look up that Hangman one.
If she types it, I'm gonna like laugh at myself. 50 Shades of Grey. Yes.
Oh, that
Yes.
was
How 50 Shades of Grey was a retelling, was a fanfic of Twilight, a steamy fanfic of Twilight. Yeah.
I
But
had
like
no idea.
that
I've yet to
not
see
as
Twilight.
I haven't read the books, but my husband and I were dating when the movies were coming out.
Wow.
So we lived in a small podunk town, so like seeing whatever movies were coming out was like the only new stuff to do.
Yep.
So you just saw whatever because it was that or bowling or walking around the park. Like
Yeah.
that was the extent of what we had to do in the area.
Yeah. Yeah. I've lived places like that too. What was that one called? Is it not The Hangman's Daughter?
Hangman's Daughter.
Oh, it is. Okay. No, that is beautiful. You're right.
right? It's so simple and so
Yeah,
different.
but beautiful border. Absolutely beautiful
And
border.
it draws you in. You're like, why are you only seeing her feet? Like, is she the one hanging? Like, I have so many questions just from the cover.
I have a different color to you. Let me
Show me.
flip camera. That's the cover I got.
Ooh.
No feet,
Great God.
but very cool.
Oh, that's cool. She says
Yeah,
she's a cover snob. Dude, so am I. There is a reason I'm paying $500 to have an artist who is not an actual cover designer who is going to probably hate me because I'm going to have to make sure that she does the right composition for cover design.
yep. And leaves room for typography.
Yeah, fortunately, she did a cover that was similar composition to what I want. So,
Oh, that's good.
yeah, Susanna, thank you. Susanna Crisco. I told you, I'm the worst at names. Like, I recognize the picture as soon as you popped up, and I'm like, I know her name. What is it? I'm so sorry. Was it Melanie who did the first? I'm seeing if this is one of the series. I know, I'm excited for the event tomorrow that she's gonna be in. She said she's in the event tomorrow. Yes. You made some really pretty. Yeah. The Christmas
This
cover
is
event's
the book
tomorrow.
cover event. Ah, okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
That should be really interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
been a
very
while
cool.
since I we got we've had a bunch of people joining the group, so that gives me like high hopes.
Yeah.
But it's always hit or miss because I know that like holiday books and like season specific book covers are harder to sell in general because a lot of authors don't write that kind of stuff unless they have a huge following who's like
Yeah.
asking for it. I mean, that was really
Yeah.
why Akotar got one of their books, which is funny
Yeah.
because so I didn't know that A Court of Thorn and Roses when I finally like broke down and picked it up. I had no clue that there were actually four books out at the time, now five.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought there were three. I didn't
Oh,
realize there was the novella. And so
oh,
when I ordered them, I accidentally read book one and two and then went right to the novella and missed book three, which is like the grand finale, big battle
oh.
stuff. And I was like, this is the worst thing ever.
I did the same with the Throne of Glass. I was like this close to getting on Facebook going, sort of, what the hell? It ends
Okay,
with the person being kidnapped and this doing this and this. And I'm just like, why is there no sequel? And then I realized I actually already had it.
so I actually, yeah, so I was literally, I went on Instagram and I was like, okay, what did I do wrong? Because this is the biggest letdown ever. Like, clearly, she just went into hiding and, like, I'm not going to do spoilers for anyone who hasn't read it, but, like, she clearly just went off into the last place she would possibly want to be. And, like, there's obviously a massive battle coming in that next book, and I was all for it. And then, like, nothing.
I
It was
know.
like you were just like gently mentioned, and I was so lost. And I'm sure
Yeah.
that I would have enjoyed that book so much more if I would have actually read the third book before I read that one. Oh my
Uh-huh.
goodness, I felt so dumb when I posted on Instagram and everyone's like, "No, you did it wrong."
I know. I thankfully realized what was going on before I posted anywhere. Because it was like everyone was going, right, let's begin. And I'm like, well, you can't end on a let's begin. It just that doesn't work.
And I feel like
Oh,
Sarah
dear.
J. Maas is one of those authors that like you can't mess with on social media because her fans are like such fanatics. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh my goodness, people are gonna hate me for not liking this. Like, this is the worst wrap up ever. Yeah.
Well, I made the mistake of looking up the series order because there's a novella in that as well. And I didn't know, well, I'm not sure it's a novella, but that there's one book that is about one of the characters, not the main character. And it's like, well, which order do you want to put that one in? Do you want to read it before this number or read it after this number? And I didn't know. So I went looking for, series order. And, everyone was saying, I'll read this one before this one. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. And it was obviously such an old post that the guy didn't have the last book in his reading order. And that just is what threw me for a complete loop. And I thought that book didn't exist. And there it was already on my my Kindle. So I was just like,
Oh
oh
my
dear.
goodness.
I know.
Okay,
Because I bought them so long ago that I'd completely forgotten what I got.
I get that.
Yeah.
So
Oh
Susanna,
dear.
you said you loved book 1 and 3 and you hated 2 and 4. Which series was that for? Because it's funny because Karen and I have each read one of Sarah J. Maas's
Yeah.
series and not read the
Not
other
the
one.
other one. I have to
A
read
Court of Thorn
Akata.
and Roses. Oh, that's so interesting that you didn't like book 2 for A Court of Thorn and Roses because it's the only one I really liked.
I
I
can't wait to
hated.
read them.
Oh, that's so interesting to me. So then, does that mean that you're a Tamlin fan? Because that is, I'm not gonna lie, I'm so Hulu, I think it is doing A Court of Thorn and Roses, and
Oh,
that's
wow.
gonna be, yeah, it got picked up for that, and that's gonna be really interesting to me.
Oh, cool.
You know how, like, as people who've not read it, who are gonna watch it because they don't like to read, but they like to watch stuff, and like, I promise the whole fandom for this series is gonna be sitting in the background for this first season, which
Yeah,
I mean, I'm guessing they're doing like a season per book, but everyone's gonna be like, ah.
I hope so. Is all I can say. Because I'm one of those
I
people,
will.
I love reading the book first, but then I go to the movie and I think, no, that didn't happen. That's wrong. This is wrong. It just destroys the movie for me.
So you like the guy who kidnapped her, which would be Rysand, I think is probably who you're talking about, which is who I love, which is why I love book 2. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, yes, Rysand. I totally get it. I don't have very many book boyfriends, but he is someone I crush on hardcore. So I get it. And it's funny because, so I promise I'm not doing like actual spoilers, but the only time that like Rysand is like you hear about him all the time when you see anything about A Court of Thorn and Roses, but nobody actually, like, if when you're reading book 1, he's like a nobody. He's literally a blip. And it
Wow.
wasn't until I read, like, got into book 2 and I got far enough into it that I was like, oh, like, she really had to have planned this out way better. Because initially, when she swapped over to book 2, when I started reading it, I was like, okay, this does not feel like the same thing. Like,
Oh,
it felt like it was a retelling that got swapped into another direction. Because at first, I was getting like serious Beauty and the Beast retellings for book 1.
uh-huh.
And I was like, that's cool. And then book 2, I was like so confused because it wasn't going along in that same Beauty and the Beast sort of vibe. And
Wow.
then by the time I finished book 2, I was like, oh, this is way better planned out than I thought because some things are mentioned in book 1 that literally seem like absolutely nothing, that mean nothing until book 2. I'm like,
Nice.
okay.
Yeah, she's good at that.
She says she's had so very many few paranormal romance books that she's read with the popularity. She had to read it. I get that. That was the Court of Thorn and Roses for me too. It was not something that was on my radar at all until I joined Instagram,
Oh,
and that was when I first started seeing it all over everything. Especially because the original covers were so pretty, like,
yeah,
and they were so different.
yeah. That's kind of why I
But
read
when
Throne of Glass. It's because of the covers, basically. I like the
yeah,
original covers with the girl on it. That's what got me into like dark fantasy look. And then she switched them to the topography covers, and that's when I thought, okay, I got to read these now.
yeah, that I totally get too.
Yeah.
Jennifer Armentrout. The name is ringing a bell. She says she met Jennifer Armentrout a few years back. I'm trying to. Why is that name ringing a bell?
I, yeah, I've heard the name too. I don't know why either.
I gotta look. There's a reason I have my laptop on my lap. Oh, she did a Blood and Ash series, right? Yeah, she's a definitely I would say a comparable to Sarah J. Maas. She
Oh,
did like
really?
Shadow and Ember. So a lot of the typography covers that you really like, um,
Oh,
A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire from Blood and Ash, a lot of those that you have in your things
yes,
are.
that's right.
Now I'm curious, who does her covers? They look very familiar, like art style wise.
No, I don't.
I'm gonna see if I can
Nice
get to
covers
it.
though.
Right, they're very pretty covers. She does a Polycon in DC. Ooh, that's one that's on my bucket list that I want to go to. I want to do a Polycon in DC. I want to go to
What?
that. I want to go to the, yeah, it's a huge, like, just nerd con kind of thing. I want to go to that one. I want to go to the Salt Lake one.
What is
I
it?
think it's called Fan X. Like a, are you familiar with like Comic Con and
Yeah,
like the general idea of it? So a lot of the Comic Cons, they've like throughout the world really, but the US is really big for them especially.
yeah.
They a lot of other ones have popped up throughout the whole US at varying sizes, but they allow authors to come as well, and some of them have become just for authors because they've gotten so big. Yeah, she's saying that one was big enough that it's a reader author event only. And yeah, a lot of them got so big that they swapped to just author cons
Oh
that's
my goodness.
just for that. Like 20 bucks to 50K is one
Hmm.
that does that. And it's all indie. There's no
Yeah,
traditional and it's massive. And they do I like when my
yeah. I
little
want
one
to
is
go
older, I
like
want
that.
to go to that.
Yeah,
I
I want
really
to go
want
to
to go
that
to
as well.
that. I think for now, I'm probably just gonna do the virtual for the next couple years.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that a Polycon in DC was romance specific. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Cool.
I've looked at some of them, but I'm only just starting to like I've always looked at like the Comic Cons and the ones that had the combination,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I want to go to Dragon Con. That's one I really want to go to. And
I get that.
one of my friends is an artist at one of the Comic Cons in Mexico. And she goes there
Ooh,
and she'll like draw whoever's standing in front of her, like a Superman or whatever they choose, kind of thing. It's really
oh,
cool.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think Ken Coleman, he's
Mm.
like one of first off, like one of the most incredible artists, especially for science fiction. Like, dude, he blows my mind. But I guess he is set up for a con in
Oh,
Frankfurt, I think it is. And like
oh,
he just
cool.
posted a picture of him like with his setup and he's going to be doing his digital art
Oh, wow.
live in front of people during this thing like and that's
Oh,
what his
wow.
booth is. He literally just set up for his booth to be for him to do this with a big like
Oh,
TV
that's so
screen
cool.
behind him and his art surrounding it so that anyone walking by can see the art he's doing. I'm like I
Oh,
would
that's
literally just stand in front of that and just like watch
exactly.
him. I mean,
Exactly. That would be really cool to see. Hopefully he'll
right?
record it.
Right. And he has such an interesting, like, one, the fact that he teaches art, like, so he's clearly got to be good at that kind of thing. So I'm
Yeah.
very intrigued to see,
Yeah.
like, I would love to
Yeah.
watch his process.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be fun.
There's a couple people that I enjoy watching as they work and their process. Do I have very much time to actually do it? No. But
No. I've got
but when I
so
can.
much, so many things to watch.
Yeah.
I've been trying to go through the Photoshop summit that's on the last day today as well. I've learned lots of little bits that I didn't realize. It was really cool. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I was totally planning on doing that and then got so overwhelmed this week that it just never
yeah,
happened. I was like, oh, oh well.
yeah.
a deal. I should have thought about the fact that it was the week before this event because I always do either one of us consider ourselves fine artists? I don't. I would
No,
love to someday, but
that's not me. um, I think book covers are a marketing piece. They're there to sell the book. That's what their job is, and that's what I do. And yeah, fine art and marketing don't always go together. It's nice and pretty when they do, but my number one thing is it's got to sell the book.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, she's saying she doesn't either. She's sorry, it was Susanna. She's saying she doesn't either. She's a totally different mindset. I will say if I did decide to do more of that, because I like the style of it,
Oh yeah, it's
if
beautiful.
I decided to do that, I would actually, and I wanted to stay in the bookish market. So, for anyone who decides they want to do that, I would use it to focus on making marketing images for authors. Because a lot
Yeah,
of times the cover itself for paid ads are
yeah, it
not
doesn't
good,
work. Yeah,
but more fine art type stuff that like shows a scene from the book and evokes an
yeah,
emotion, those work better.
yeah,
So like if someone wanted to really get into fine art that's still book related,
yeah,
that and like character cards and
yeah,
that kind of thing would be the way to go.
yeah, yeah. It was fun because I've done a few character cards and it was fun for that. So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, definitely not
Character
on
cards are
cover.
like, yes, Karen does have some books out. She doesn't write anymore, but
No,
Karen is both indie and trad published.
yep,
Well, I'm good. We fortunately there's a lot of on both of us on our chats we've got a couple designers and we're both designers and authors, so we tend to be involved in a lot of the I would say that Karen and I, because we're so used to having to figure out the marketing from the art side as well as the writing side, I think that we may have a more broad understanding of like what will work better for different spots because of that,
yeah.
which I don't mean that in a cocky way. It's literally just that we've
No,
had to
you've
put the
wanted to
time into
experience both
learning more.
sides. It helps.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
much so.
yeah, yeah. It really does.
Yeah,
Because I went through Brian Cohen's ad course and I learned so much about AMS ads with that. And yeah, the image is part of it.
yeah. It's
So
a huge part.
yeah,
It really is. Well,
yeah,
and also like even people who love books love words. And most, if people are reading, obviously it's different when they're reading nonfiction, but people who read fiction more often than not, she wishes she that we could both see what is in the chat box. Yeah, I try to share as much as I can of it.
yes. I know it'd be nice if you were like, talking to each other that you both got to see it. But yeah, I had the same
Yeah.
when Sarah was on. I was like reading it out.
But yeah, we've got a couple other people who are popping up in the chat here and there too. But yeah, it's kind of interesting because like one thing that I've noticed when I've been studying, you could jump on Karen's. Karen will not feel lonely if you jump on there. Just
This
saying.
is true.
And Karen is awesome. So because I think you may have known her longer than me. But yeah, because people who love books, they want to escape and they love words and they love how words look. And authors especially love how words look. And so that's kind of an interesting, like they want to feel an emotion, they want to escape. So like from what I found, TikTok, Instagram, any sort of paid ads that are going onto Amazon or Facebook or, TikTok, Instagram, you really kind of have to have the right combination of emotion evoking art and words. Like
Yes.
the one thing that I see that I would say for cover designers, authors, really most inexperienced people in this area, the one of the biggest mistakes that I see when they're trying to market themselves is they put up an ad of some sort or they're trying to market themselves and it sounds like an ad. It sounds like an
Yeah.
multi-level marketing person, which don't be wrong, I know some people don't do that in a cheesy, sleazy way, but
Yeah. The most
That's
do.
what it feels like.
Yeah. And hi there.
It's just hopeless when it comes to imagery.
It's tough
It's
because
definitely
yeah, I did Chris Fox's ad course as well when I was writing, and one of the first things he said is like starting you to come to create about 20 different images for your Facebook ads, none of which contain your book cover, and then try and
yep.
learn which ones work better and why, and analyze it. It was fascinating. So yeah,
That's something I'm working on right now. But I'm fighting my imposter syndrome really bad on World Walker on my book that I've got coming out soon. Because this is gonna sound like I know it's imposter syndrome, but you know when you've worked on a book to a certain point, and then you're just like you're sick of it, and so you're like, what's the point of even releasing it? Because I'm sick of it. Everyone's
yeah,
like, it's not gonna
everyone's gonna
be
be sick of it. Yeah,
yeah, like you
yeah,
have that, and I can tell I'm at that point with this book where I'm like, I'm waiting to get it back from the editor. This is my second round with an editor because I needed help
oh,
early on, and
yeah.
you said, "Oof, she's got an illustrated cover for a rom com, and that's going to be a challenge." Though, rom com does really well with illustrated covers in specific art styles. Um, I've done a couple that are on that, so I've done a lot of studying. 'Cause any cover that I make for somebody, I tend to do a lot of research first. I know Karen does too, and Susanna. Like we all tend
Yes,
to do a lot of research
yeah.
into like the current
That's my
markets.
jam.
Yes,
Yeah, because she came from a
because
marketing advertising background, so yeah,
mhm.
cringes a lot at a lot of ads. I can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do too. I
yeah,
do too. And I feel so bad when I'll see a an ad that the art is like perfect. I'm like, "Oh, that nailed it." But then the words they used for it, like I found the ones that I see usually do the best for like Facebook especially tend to have some sort of like quick, not necessarily funny, but like summary about the book, or is a really
yes,
intriguing scene that you
yeah,
like get a sneak peek into. Like those tend to do so much better than, this book is like these other authors, or is
yeah,
like, like the blurb. The blurb typically is not very great. Like they need instant emotional pull in. So
mm-hmm.
like the art and whatever your type words.
Yeah,
Not that
yeah,
I can clearly
right.
think of words
Yeah,
at the
so
moment,
many
but
give the plot away. They do.
yes,
But
yeah,
there's got to be something in there. And I mean, if you can summarize your book in like 1 to 2 lines and that works in an ad, if you've summarized it well, it's just enough, like,
yeah,
here's the hook. And it's like, oh, yeah, I want to know the answer to that. So,
right. Or like I said, that's why I think some of the easiest ones to do is to do part of a scene that like really draws an audience in. Like the one
yeah,
that you were the most excited to write,
yeah,
even if it's like a huge plot thing, you don't have to put the whole scene. You don't have to give the whole plot
yeah,
giveaway, but put enough that people like, because most people when they're scrolling through Facebook, you typically like get a general gist of the first one or two sentences of
yeah, you do.
most posts that you're scrolling past. So if
Yeah.
you can catch them with a scene that makes them stop for a second and go, "Ooh, I need more," and
Mm-hmm.
the art does the same thing. Actually, that was one thing that um, for those who don't know, Logan's a friend of ours who's a cover designer as well as a best-selling author. And that was one piece of advice that she gave me was, and she said she does this for her, and I was like, okay. So I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I'm gonna say it. She said that one of the things that she does is the big money that she spends, she doesn't necessarily spend it on a cover designer. Cover is very important, um, but she'll spend the big money on a fine artist to do an emotion pulling piece of art, and that is actually a tax write off for her because she uses it for the ads for marketing. And so
Yeah.
she's like, that's how I can afford to do the really good artists for something for my book is I use them for my ads. I don't use them for my cover. And I was like, that's interesting because I do get it though. Because I mean, if that kind of art versus a cover is a completely different composition, they need a
Yeah,
different type of emotion to pull to it. A
yeah,
scene from a book does not normally work for a cover
yeah.
at
It
all.
doesn't, unless it's lit RPG. That's the only time I've
Yeah,
seen
lit
it work.
RPG. I swear
But
lit
they're
RPG
really into
gives
the
them away
battle.
with so much stuff that no one else really does.
Yes. They seem to be the opposite of every genre almost.
They do.
But yeah. But everybody, the readers, they want the scene. They want to see the battle. Is the battle worth following, kind of thing? You know,
Oh yeah,
it's a game. You know.
exactly.
But anything else, yeah, you've got what, a third of a second or whatever before it scrolls past it. It's got to be clear. And a battle
Yeah, it's
scene nine times out of 10 doesn't do that. So
and you have
fine
to
art.
have the right kind of composition to like have a center of focus somewhere that your eye is going to catch as you scroll past it in that split second
Yeah,
because otherwise your eye literally skims past it. This one thing that I've noticed, there's been a bunch that like if it doesn't have a focal point of some sort that draws your eye first, I see a lot of them that will do like just a movement, which is pretty, except that when you're scrolling, your eye does the same movement across the
yeah,
cover and it never stops to read the title. It never takes in
yeah,
any actual detail. So it's not doing its job of making someone look at the cover for more than a split second.
yeah. I have a question here. Is the genre you design the same as what you read, or did you find you were better at something different? I'll let you answer first.
My Okay, so my preferred genre and the ones I really specialize in, yes, but that's mostly because I do a lot of high and epic fantasy and like fantasy retellings. But I stepped back from doing romance and like scary kind of covers when I started getting booked up. I stepped away from those. So I don't do steamy. But like I was telling Karen, I the last few months I've been getting a ton of contemporary fantasy romance, which is not a genre I normally read,
Yeah,
but I've been doing a lot of covers for those. So those have been interesting because the style is very, and I do cozy as well and a couple other things like that, even though I don't have as much time to read as I would like. I think
yeah,
everyone has
none
that
of us
problem.
do. Yeah, yeah,
Cozy is a genre I really want to get into reading because it's like Hallmark murder mystery, but half time you throw in magic, and I mean I'm
yeah,
totally down for that.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't read a whole ton of contemporary fantasy romance, but I've been doing a lot of work in that. So yeah.
Cool.
What about you?
Yeah. Well, for me, the art I tend to design that works the best for me is either urban fantasy, PNR, dark fantasy. And I seem to be, I love the artwork of them and I get into them and I seem to be pretty good at them. And up until really a year ago, because of what I wrote, I solely read lit RPG. Now I'm sort of like starting to read the other ones that I've, that go with the covers that I like designing. So I'm starting to read the dark fantasy and a lot more of the urban fantasy. And I had read urban fantasy before, but there's an awful lot that I missed along the way. So I'm sort of starting to read
Yeah.
those now. And I'm starting to read some PNR as well and try and get into what I like designing in cover wise. Um, so yeah, there wasn't an overlap, but now there is starting to be an overlap.
I actually get that. I don't, so I do some paranormal romance. I don't do a whole ton just
uh-huh.
because my work tends to be a little bit less saturated in
Yeah,
general. I don't always do that, but and paranormal romance tends to be much more saturated just as a trope for the genre.
yeah,
But a couple years ago, I got really into shifters, and so even now, like
yeah. I
I
love doing
still have
shift
certain
covers.
authors that I follow.
Yeah,
Like I love a good dragon shifter or wolf shifter.
nice. I haven't
Sometimes,
read any shifters, weirdly enough, but I love doing the covers.
oh my god,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Oh, that bug in my mouth. Ah, sorry.
That's right. We have a fly going around here, so oh
Oh
dear.
yeah, I love a good shifter. when I read, I need something that's enough far enough away from my like regular everyday life to be able to mix things up. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
shifters.
Shifters are beyond my creative scope, she says.
They're hard,
Oh dear.
especially because like for good, especially for wolves, to find good wolves,
Oh
that's
dear.
really hard because the good ones get used over and over and over again. Actually, my cover this week is a female with a wolf
Yep.
shifter cover.
Mine's yours. Not what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But mine's going to be interesting because no faces.
Oh wow.
So I'm having to be creative about how to do it so that it'll still be very tropey for the
Mm.
genre without a face.
Mm.
So right now I'm
Yeah,
working on
that's
the
gonna be
rough draft.
different. That is going to
Yeah.
be different.
Yeah. I've got a couple ideas that I think will be really cool. And like if they work and if she likes them, I honestly think that they're because it's going to be a series of four and we're working on book one right now.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but if it works, if she likes the idea that I've got for it, I think it's going to be one that's going to like fit into the niche really well, but
Oh,
that's definitely going to stand out. So,
nice.
in your bed.
Nice.
Go. In your bed. Off with me. Sorry. Really,
It's
he
good.
gets lots of love and cuddles, I promise.
Yes, he just wants more.
He's so sweet, but
Oh, yeah. Actually,
yeah,
talking
so
of bed, I should probably call it a night pretty soon. Hubby's
sounds
kind of like,
good.
okay.
I get that. Yeah, I have some work to do tonight. So while we're on, especially that way anyone who's on can kind of see, is there a genre or subgenre that you want to like dig into and play around with for next week?
Yeah, and I'll create a mood board for it on Pinterest, and we'll have a chat, and then we'll link the mood board in the YouTube video from the recordings.
Definitely. Yeah. So yeah, well, I will let you get some sleep and I will start work so I can go to bed at some point in time.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Where am I from originally? Oh, I'm from all over. I was born in England, but I actually grew up in Hong Kong. And then I moved back to England for university. And that's where I met my husband. And now I live in the States. So all over the place.
I know it threw me for a loop when I met her first too. I like hearing
Yeah.
her voice on Zoom, and I'm like, man, I know what time it is in England, and why are you awake right now? Like, this is
Yeah.
crazy. I'm like, it's the
Yeah.
middle of the night for you. And then I find out she was in the States. I was like, okay, this all makes so much more sense.
Yeah. Yes. My family are kind of spread. My sister's in England. I knew Florida wasn't where you were originally from. Yes, but yeah, my sister's in England because she went to university in England and she met someone at university, and so she married him and stayed there. And my parents are in Switzerland, so they're kind of different to everyone as well. But at least they're an hour. Actually, they're an hour further away than England, so but still works. I still get to chat to them like a couple of times a week. So
Nice.
thank goodness for Skype.
I have an aunt that's 2 years younger than me that she met,
Oh,
ironically, in Florida. She met a
oh,
British guy and moved to England, and now they've got like it's so cute. Talk like I video chat with her all the time. She's an author as well,
oh,
so we
cool.
talk books. And she it's so funny because it's so weird to me to hear my cousins, my little like young kid cousins running around with British accents. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
It is so crazy.
yeah, yeah. My nephew and niece have very strong. Well, they're in Sheffield, so they've got very strong Sheffield, Manchester kind of area accents because he's from Manchester and they now live in Sheffield, and yeah, it's very different.
Awesome.
And my sister's accent, needless to say, has gone that way.
I love that though. I get that though because I'm originally from Idaho. When we moved to North Carolina, my a lot of my family that's out here, even though they're not from North Carolina, they have southern drawls.
Oh,
And I'm
right.
like, I love it when I'm out here and people are like, "Oh, what's like your accent? Where's it from?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Your accent has a name. It's a southern drawl. Like I don't have an accent."
You do to me.
I love
That's a
that.
completely random question. Is Birmingham an okay area? I don't think I've been to Birmingham. It's a bit, I guess, like Liverpool and fairly sort of streetwise, but then there's some very nice areas too. So I don't know is the answer. I don't think I've ever been. Oh well.
Yeah. All I know from that stuff is what I see on TV, so I'm no help for any of that.
Yeah. Well, one of my book models lives there. Oh, cool.
Oh,
Very
that's
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
That's something that I would love to get into is doing like photography
Oh, that would be so cool.
models.
But I'm an appalling photographer, so I don't think that'll ever happen.
I love doing it, but I don't have like it's years away. I don't have time to schedule that.
No,
Yeah.
no. And I don't
My
think I'd have
passion
the
though.
guts to like go up to someone and say, "I like your look. Can you come back and let me photograph you?" Because some
I
of
would
these
feel
people
like a
do.
creeper. Like that would be so
Exactly.
hard to not feel like who okay, what's his name? The designer that he does the photography for his stuff. And then he puts up like the extras for sale or something like that. And he was saying that his was it Keith?
Keith Kurt?
Yeah, it might have been him that was saying that like sometimes he has to have his wife be the one who goes up and asks
Yes, I know.
women
I'm thinking of the
when
same
he does
person. I can't
that.
think of his name. She says, "I would love to work with a photographer. I met him on TikTok, and I can't think of his name now."
Yeah, I'm terrible at names, but
Yeah.
yeah, that made me laugh when he was like, yeah, I got to a point where I felt creepy doing this, and so I just started like for the women, my wife goes and asks, and for the
Yeah.
men, I go and ask. I'm like, I get
Yeah.
that.
Furious Photog or Wanderer. I have no idea. Egar? I don't know. I don't know what that says.
It's probably the TikTok handle for the photographer.
Oh, okay. Got you. Yeah, I cannot
That's
remember his
good to
name.
know
I'm
though,
thinking it
because
starts
I'm
with a K.
always looking for like new and like unoversaturated
Hmm. Models.
photographers that do
Yes.
photography for designers, like for book
Yeah.
covers that like we can, because
Yeah.
that's hard to
We
find.
need another 20 face stocks.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. That's part of why there's some projects I actually do use. I spend the $25 for period images for something from them sometimes because they're not overused.
Yeah. Yeah. BT Urella, Urella, is a model slash author. Wow. That would be cool.
Ah,
Be the model on your own book covers. That would be amazing.
okay, well, what's his name? There's a guy who is a romance author and he's on TikTok. Again, terrible at names, but he's got
Romance
like
author.
fairly longer hair, super
Uh-huh.
built dude, and like everyone's
Also
like, you
named
need.
Vet.
Ah. Yeah, he needs to be on his own covers. He writes
Mm.
romance, and he's
Oh
gorgeous.
wow.
And we're
Yeah.
like, why? And he has an awesome voice, and he does like voiceover
Oh
videos
my god.
sometimes of like TV shows
Oh
and like
wow.
anime especially. And we're like, okay, you need to also do our audiobooks too, because I would
Yeah,
totally listen.
exactly. Ryan Stacks.
That's probably. See, all these people are good at names.
Yes, I'm not either.
I'm like looking to see. I bet that's probably double check. Yep, Ryan Stacks. That's him.
Oh, I'll have to look
Yeah,
him up.
he does a lot of
I'm
like
good at names. That's awesome because neither of us are.
terrible. But yeah, he does like man chest type romance
Oh, wow.
that he writes. And
Wow.
I will send you his Amazon so you can see what I just for, the future. You don't have to look at it right this second. But yeah, this dude is awesome. He's like one of my favorite people to see pop up on TikTok
Cool.
just because
Awesome.
he's so unique.
Cool. Thank you for that. I will have to have a look. I'm curious if he's any good. I'll have to have a read.
I will fully admit I have not had a chance to like I recognize oh that's funny. Some of the models he's used are some of the like ones I won't touch because they get used so much. And one of them is a model that was one of the very first models I ever used on a cover. So that's
Yeah.
very funny to me. But I haven't actually read I don't think I've ever read his stuff, but he's got really all of
No,
his books are a good chunk of reviews on them. So he's not like a nobody author.
nice. I'll have to go have a look.
Sorry. I was
That's it.
looking at what his stuff was. It's interesting because even his stuff, the you could tell the better the cover, the more reviews that book has.
That is
So like,
interesting.
he's not
Yeah, it's
so
amazing how
great covers,
much.
like 20 reviews, but his good covers have like 100 plus.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing how much it makes a difference. He
Yeah.
goes to author events so ladies love him. I can imagine.
Oh, I bet he does. I am curious though if he falls into the trap of because some male authors that write romance, like I don't like the way that they write sexy times for women
All
because a
right.
lot of times they'll like say things that are very awkward that you're like that's not a thing. Like you clearly don't understand how the woman's body works because a tampon is not pleasurable in that sort of way. Like you
Yeah, it
know,
is not.
so like I'm curious if he's that kind of author or not.
God, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
intrigued now.
I've not, I've not read any like that. I have to say, thank goodness. Oh dear.
there's there's a female author on TikTok that she has this whole running. I think she's an author. She might just be a reader, but she not just, but you know what I mean. But she has this whole running thing right now where she reads specifically romances written by men, and then she will read the cringe parts out loud in her TikToks, and be
Oh my
like, and
goodness.
like give her feedback on it, like, I don't know, like I will binge watch her stuff. When she pops back up on my feed again, I will go back and catch up on all the ones I
Oh
missed
my
because they're
goodness.
hilarious.
That is funny. Yeah. I know the lit RPG lot are very similar because most of them are men, and there was quite a few of them that would sort of send me like, sort of, would you mind reading this and tell me if it's all right from a woman's point of view?
I
So
have someone over here saying that they love that creator too, that they think she's hilarious. Yes, she totally is. I think she's so
quite hilarious.
funny. There's a couple people in here I always crack up about. Yeah. I think that's the hard thing with like figuring out TikTok is figuring out how to post something that you enjoy and you enjoy like you would enjoy watching, but you don't feel like a sellout or super cheesy.
That's
Like
what I'm
really
struggling with majorly.
the trick is figuring out how to find the people that are the
Excuse
same kind of nerd that you are. I think is probably
me.
the best way to put it because everyone's nerdy about something. Like
Yeah,
everybody has hobbies and things they love. Like I feel like that's the trick is figuring out how to reach your little community. And really to do that, sometimes you have to go a while making stuff that you find entertaining until those people find you.
got you. I'll have to do that. I have a question. So I have an ethics TT. I'm assuming that's TikTok author question.
Mhm.
There isn't any more yet.
Totally get it. It's all good.
I know what it's like typing like this.
Yes.
I am appalling at it. Here we go. I have found an
There's
author I love who makes a specific content. Okay.
poor Karen's used to my like I'm the worst at typos because normally I'm typing with one hand and a child like my 2 year old crawling on me with the other. And I'm also the kind of person that unless I look away for a little bit and then go back to something, I see what I wanted to write and not what's actually there. So poor
Yeah.
Karen gets sent probably daily messages with typos from me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I swear, I probably apologize multiple times a day to her too, because I
Do.
feel
It's
so
fine.
bad about it because I know it's so not professional. But my
Makes
other
no difference to
problem
me.
is if I don't do it, if I don't send it right then with that, I won't remember to send it because I won't have the
Yeah.
notification anymore that I need
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a bit of a question. I made a set of 3 covers based on her specific content she never acknowledged. As a pre-made or as a custom did you make them?
And how long has it been?
Yeah.
Just curious because I know I have dealt with a couple versions of this scenario, including one I'm in the middle of right now.
Yeah. Okay. Um, she never know, but released a book in the last month named the same. So made a set of 3 covers. Yes, pre-made January this year. Made a set of 3 covers based on her specific content she never acknowledged, but then released a book in the last month named the same.
Did she pay the final payment?
Yeah.
That's kind of the biggest. And again, it's also going to come down to your contract. So, for example, I have a situation that's similar. I had, but I'm also a little bit odd in the designer community with how my contract goes because most designers require a 50% non-refundable deposit.
Is it
I am
non-refundable? Mine isn't, but I
Most
just
people
do a
are
50%
non-refundable.
deposit up front.
I don't I'm the kind of person that because I know I'm not super well off and life happens, I cannot guarantee that if someone needs to cancel on me, like that I haven't spent that money on bills. So what I do instead is I start working on the covers. Start working on projects on a Friday, and the Monday before I send the contract and do a $50 refundable deposit. Um, and in my contract, the way I have it set up is that if at any point in time someone decides I can't get them what they want, that I will refund them that $50 and then I'll like rework it so I can sell it as a pre-made. And I do change it a good chunk, but if they don't want for me to sell it, if they don't want me to like do that, I keep the $50 to recoup the money I spent on stock images or things I needed to purchase to make the cover. Um, but I also have in my contract that I require payment within, I think it's a week of the cover being finished. Um, and if they don't respond to me in that, and if I've been ghosted, normally I'd do a buffer of like a month or so because I know that life happens. I know sometimes Facebook or emails stuff get lost with messages. But I'll try to contact them typically 2 or 3 times, and if I haven't heard anything, then I go ahead and take it apart and rework it. Um, but
Mine's
yeah,
very
I'm dealing with the
different.
like I said, I know it's totally different from most
Yeah,
the
I
way most
do.
designers.
If they're booking like a long way ahead, I do a $50 non-refundable booking fee, so that just secures their place. And then 2 to 3 days ish before I start, I'll do the 50% deposit minus any booking fee if there was one, and then I do the other 50% at the end before I send the files. So if they don't pay, they don't get the cover. But I tend to,
Yeah,
I'm a lot more chatty with my authors, I think, than most people are. As in, I will
I
send
am
them
too.
like, how's this going? How's this going? Screenshots, left,
Yep.
right, and center, kind of thing, which a lot of authors, really appreciate. I've had so many people say, "Oh, I love how you communicate, and I love that I can see how it's coming as I can go, so I can like, so go, oh, actually, I prefer that in green or whatever if they need any
Hmm.
changes." But we tend to like get on Daz together, and they'll see me do the figure, and so they know what the character's wearing. They don't have to worry about it. Are they going to like it at the end?
Yeah.
They've seen it being dressed, and that kind of stuff. So And I've got the rest of this question. So she said, no, 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 she never used me. I did it and sent it to her as an idea. And she does the same as one of us. Me, I assume, but I don't know. So, yeah,
So
I guess,
then,
yeah, she never used you, then there's not a lot you can really do about it. Maybe she was in the middle of having them remade at the time.
well, and
You, me.
did if she didn't pay for them, then I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, honestly, if she didn't pay for them, they weren't hers, and it sounds like she went
Yeah,
ahead and found something else that spoke to her in a different way. Um,
exactly. I rework them as a pre-made and put a different title
yeah,
on them, obviously, um,
yeah,
and just release them.
yeah, which is pretty standard. I have someone asking, is there a seasonal cycle for pre-mates other than holidays? So I will say the
Not
pre-made market
August.
right now, yeah, not August. August, I swear, is like when most authors and designers take off. But,
Yeah,
and December. December is another month that is typically very slow. But I
yeah,
will say within the designer community, this has been a big thing of discussion lately. That over the last year, we have seen a huge shift in really more the last 9 months in the pre-made market, um, because it's actually slowed down a lot. Oh, style wise, I'm sorry.
yeah,
It depends on the genre. I will say the expected quality for a pre-made to be able to sell has jumped significantly, um, a lot. Depending on the genre, like I do a lot of fantasy. Fantasy definitely has been pushing, definitely dark fantasy, big time. Um, and pushing more and more illustrated style, but with a blend of realistic elements. So, like in order for them to sell, most things in paranormal romance or most fantasies require a head swap to actually sell, honestly, for like any price.
yeah.
Um, that's a big one. And I am I am seeing more and more object and typography based ones for fantasy for pre-mades, but I will say too that unless you want like if you want an object or typography based one, you really kind of have to do a custom if you don't want like a basic here's a
Especially
sword,
a
here's a crown,
photography
here's
one.
a skull.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not so bad for an object one because the object, the title's like any like cover, like with characters. You can just put the title at the bottom or the top, and you're okay. But a topography one, the title is the artwork. So
Yeah.
yeah, that one it either gets sold as a pre-made with the title, which I've done before, or you need a
Yep.
custom.
I've let my group sometimes vote on like the title. Like I feel like people like
Yeah,
suggest, hey, these are titles like that I would use, and I would typically pick something that I could see working in general. Because I would say even my regular covers, about 50% of my pre-mades, the authors choose to keep the title.
oh wow,
Um,
I've only had one. That was it.
really?
One dark fantasy that kept the title. Yeah,
I think
that's
part
amazing.
of it is whether or not someone is buying it before or after they got very far into the story.
Yes, yeah. And I have the rest of the reply as well. She said, no, I think I gave her the book concept of your ones or
Oh,
of the one she
I think
published.
are you saying, I have a feeling that I know what you're saying, and this is like the bane of a cover designer's existence. Are you saying that you came up with the design and what they came out with, what they published with, was very similar to that? So you think that there's a chance that they took your like
Mark,
mock-up
yeah,
to a like maybe
cheaper
Fiverr designer or someone way cheaper
sounds
and
that
had
way.
them do it because that is a big problem that we run into. And it's actually one of the big reasons why many cover designers do a 50%
Yeah,
non-refundable deposit because they've had that happen so many times, and that's what they do to prevent it. And honestly, if I get burned in that way enough times, I will have to swap to that too. But for the time being, I've been very
Yeah.
lucky with most of my people.
Yeah. That's why I do a 50% upfront, certainly. But I've been lucky. I figured once people have invested the 50% and they've watched me like dress the character and pick the background and okay this and okay that, they're so invested that they don't tend to go away after that. So she says, no, I think she took my mock up and decided to write it based on having visual representation. So she wrote the book on your mock up.
I could see something like that because I know a lot of
Yeah.
authors buy. I mean, it sucks that they didn't buy it, but
Yeah.
uh,
There's not a
but
lot
I
you can
do
do
know
about that.
yeah, and I know that there's a lot of
Yeah.
times that I'll see like in my own I mean, I've got Pinterest boards of art for like things that inspired me for scenes or characters or that kind of stuff. And sometimes I do have like book covers that I've seen that spoke to me that like obviously I'm not going to write the same book they did, but
Yeah.
just the art of it made me go, "Ooh, what about
Yeah.
like it's very common."
Yeah. Right, I really need to go to bed because my hubby's already gone upstairs.
Well, get some sleep. We'll do this again next Friday. Hang out and chill
Yes,
and chat.
yes.
Talk
And we'll have to
books
come
and
up
book
with a
covers.
new genre. And
Yes, we'll do that. Thank you.
cool. But it was great fun. And I
Yeah.
would have been
Thanks for
excited if she said, hey, that inspired me, but no, she was silent. There's not a lot we can do about that, unfortunately. But
yeah,
yeah,
it sucks.
it does
We've
suck.
all been there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
I'm gonna go to
Hopefully we'll
bed.
see you guys next week.
Yeah. Bye.